right after this one that I've got to do. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Hang on, let me just make sure it's recording. Yeah, it is. So like I said, I hope everybody's doing okay in the midst of all this crazy weather that we're experiencing. So tonight, basically, we're just closing out the class. This is our last and final Zoom meeting for EDL 700. So I'm going to quickly kind of walk you through the assignments. A lot of you have already finished them. I've even got a couple of people that have finished their final exams. So things are getting graded and all of that as we go. And then basically just kind of talk you through a couple of final thoughts about professional learning communities and answer any questions that you guys might have. So before we get going anymore, do you guys have any specific questions so far about where we are and what we're doing and that kind of stuff?
Did you say that the assignment due this week, we don't need a reference page for or citations?
You know what? I just totally went blank. That's a really good question. What assignments do we have due this week, guys? I'm looking. Hang on. Let me pull.
It was the one pager where we just had to answer a few questions.
Oh, yeah. No, you do not need a reference page for that one. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
I've been reading grant applications all day. And so I'm really brain dead right now between reading and then writing reviews and stuff. Like I said, I'm kind of brain dead. So y'all forgive me. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. So let me pull up Moodle here for you guys. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing my Moodle account. So let's go ahead and go down to, we are now in week 6, getting very close to finishing out the course. Actually, let me take it out of editing mode because that just is a distractor. Hang on one second. Okay, so let me go back down here. Okay, so if you remember, well, back from week 5, you had the first part of the case study. That is not due until next Saturday, the 27th, but a lot of you have already completed it or sent it to me. So I think most of you are in pretty good shape. Then this week you have several things that you need to watch. So there's some videos about, a really good professional learning community. Then you are going to be writing and using SMART goals. So for this particular assignment, let's just look at it real quick here. Okay, so hopefully you guys are still seeing everything I need you to see. Let me move this over to this screen so you can see it. Okay, are y'all seeing the assignment setting and using SMART goals? Nope. Okay, let me stop sharing and let me share again. And sometimes this works beautifully. Other times it gives me just heartburn. Okay, so in this particular assignment, you're going to be creating 2 SMART goals. So one is going to be for your students, and then one is going to be for the staff members who are in your PLC. So to do this, here are the directions. So I'm not going to read those to you. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. But basically, you're going to be creating these goals, and you can use the standard that you unpacked previously in the course, or you can use a different standard or whatever to set your SMART goals. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and let me go ahead and go back over here. Hang on one second. Close that out. Close tabs. And let me actually pull up the template. Okay, so as soon as it opens here, I'll share this with you guys too. Okay, so I'm getting all these weird little things. I need to enable editing because it looks strange. Okay, let me share this with you guys now. Give me one second. Okay, so this is the template that you're going to be using. And I've given you in the attachments, the resources folder, lots of examples of what a SMART goal is. But remember, a SMART goal has certain elements. So it must be specific, it must be measurable, it must be time bound, etc. So you're going to actually go in for this assignment and complete this worksheet, which really walks you step by step through how you would develop an effective SMART goal. So the first thing you're going to do is that you're going to think about your professional learning community, and you're going to tell me who is a part of your team. So I'm not interested in names, guys, because those really aren't going to mean anything to me. What I really need are titles. So your team might be the third grade teachers, and it's going to include the third grade teacher lead, the third grade reading and writing teacher, third grade math teacher, third grade science teacher, and third grade social studies teachers. You would list those titles. Then as the first step in here, you're going to think about what are those areas that you really need to work on with your students. So you might say that based on the recent district benchmark, we need to focus on the reading skill of summarization with our students. Then you're going to also look at step number 2. And so think about as well, what are those things that you really want to accomplish across the year? So these are pretty broad, global sorts of things, okay? Then in step number 3, you're going to highlight, hang on one second, guys, let me change the view of this. I think it'll make it a little bit easier. There we go. Okay, now we can't see it. Let's make it bigger. Well, maybe. Sorry, guys. My computer's being really non-cooperative today. I think it's frozen like everything else. Okay, so then you're going to include what are district goals that are aligned to the area that you're going to be working on. So hopefully your district has goals and stuff, and you can pull them from there. If not, you can always use your school goals or something like that. So you only have to list 2 or 3 of them right here, okay? Then from that information, so let's say that we're going to be working on reading, that's our specific discrete skill. We know that our students need work in summarization, main idea, inferencing. We know too that our district has goals specifically related to literacy, so I'm going to list that one there. Then I'm going to write first a student learning SMART goal. And remember, a SMART goal should be specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound. So the way that I would use this tool, you actually kind of do it in reverse. So I would first answer those things that are specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented, and time-bound, and then put that together into an actual goal. So what is specific about this? Well, I just said that based on our benchmark data, we're going to work on third graders' reading skill of summarization. So what's the specific concept or learning skill that I want my students to do? Well, it's going to be right here that I want my students to be able to summarize a 3-page document, with clarity and accuracy. Okay, how am I going to measure that? Well, I want my students to be able to do that with 90% or better accuracy. Okay, so remember that measurement should be very specific, a percentage, a number of correct responses, however you want to word it. The attainable part is that we have to make sure that this is realistic. So under attainable, I might put something like students will attain this skill in the next 5 days, okay? Results oriented, so what is it that I expect them to do? And that again kind of goes back to the measurable part. So the whole idea is that I want them to be able to successfully summarize a 3-page document. And then time bound kind of is repetitive when we talk about the attainable part, but they're going to do that within 5 to 7 days, okay? So I put all that together and I would come up with something like, students will be able to successfully summarize a 3-page reading document. Let me start over. Students will be able to successfully summarize a 3-page nonfiction document with 90% accuracy by the end of, let's say, the 6 weeks, or by the end of the unit on, pick a date, February the 26th. Okay, so see how it included all of those elements? So sometimes it's a little bit hard to kind of come up with what each one of these means. So I'm really not as interested in this part of the template as I am the actual goal, but this should help you break it down. Okay, so let's talk about a staff learning goal. So what am I specifically wanting my staff to be able to do? Well, we really need to work on how we are teaching vocabulary effectively to our students. Okay, So what's the specific thing that I want the teachers to be able to do? I want them to be able to successfully use best practices to teach vocabulary. Okay. How am I going to measure that? I want my teachers to be able to do that successfully 100% of the time. How am I going to make that attainable? Well, I'm going to use the Robert Marzano and Deborah Pickering developing academic vocabulary methods. Okay. What do I want my results to look like? Well, I already said we want it to be, with 100% accuracy. So that's going to be seen through observation. And time bound, I want us to accomplish this goal by the end of the semester. Okay. So what might that look like when I put it all together? So something like staff will be able to successfully teach vocabulary using the Robert Marzano Building Academic Vocabulary Model with 100% accuracy by the end of the spring semester 2021. Okay, so see how that kind of all flows and comes together. Okay, so these should be specific. Make sure that you're not making them too broad or too global. Okay, so a SMART goal should not include more than generally going to be one skill or one concept that you want people to obtain, whether it's a student or the staff members. Okay. Then from there, based on what my goals are right here, I'm going to just list some of those topics that we may discuss in one of our PLCs. So if my SMART goal up here for students is about summarization. So the first thing we might do in week 1 is we're going to review our benchmark data. So we know where we stand in terms of students mastering the skill of reading summarization. Then in week 2, we're going to do identify and unpack those standards related to how students respond to summarization. Then in week 3, we're going to develop and use our SMART goals to set the stage and create a unit plan. Then in week 4, we're going to identify those best instructional practices that we're going to deploy and use as part of that instructional plan. Then in week 5, we're going to develop and look at both our formative and summative assessment tools that will help us to monitor progress and success on these particular goals. Okay, so sounds kind of complicated. It's really not once you get into this. And like I've said before, I'm more than happy to look at your goals before you submit them for a grade. If you want, just email them to me. But I will tell you about 15 or 16 of your classmates have already done this and they did a great job. So hopefully, like I said, this all makes sense. Hang on one second. I've got to let some people in to the session. Okay, hopefully they're in now. Okay, so questions about
a question. I'm sorry for interrupting. Okay, so I submitted the SMART goal thing. My school makes us do a staff and a student SMART goal at the beginning of the year. So I kind of did what we use, and I used our wording. And now that you're explaining it, my wording isn't matching yours. So may I resubmit that assignment? Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. Just email it to me. Yeah, and I know a lot of schools do like a SMART goal for the year, that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, you can do that. But what typically happens when you do a SMART goal that's longer than just a couple of weeks, it becomes very difficult to truly measure it and to successfully track your progress along the way. It can be done, don't get me wrong, but it just makes it more challenging. Okay, but yeah, absolutely. And if you want me to look at it before you resubmit it or whatever, just shoot me an email. I'll look at it and give you some feedback.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that I did the SMART goals and I submitted it, and then I'm working on the PLC plan, and I'm noticing that like some of the questions are very similar. I think maybe last week you mentioned that like we could copy and paste some of the. Is that still okay? Like I don't want you to feel like I'm, taking from my other assignment, but the questions are like almost, some of them are almost identical.
Yeah, no, and that's by design because ultimately, sorry, my dog's just being a pest. Ultimately, it all flows together. So yeah, what you've been doing is it's almost like we're building a building from the foundation up. So, you know, some of the things that you've already done should actually be copied and pasted or moved into the next assignment, because there's no reason for you to go out there and recreate it. You know, like I said, you've unpacked a standard where you can use those standards. You know, you've created some PLC activities. Again, just reuse all of that, because yeah, that's what should happen in reality, is you're not doing all these separate activities in a silo. They all really should blend together. And that's how your PLC can move itself forward.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Sure. Kelly, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay. I see a little hand. I don't know what that's all about.
Tracy, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Can the student goal and the teacher goal, can they be completely separate?
Yeah, absolutely. You can either do something that's complementary, or you can do something completely separate. Either one is fine. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Milo, stop. Yeah, either one is absolutely fine.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else before we move on? Going once, going twice? Okay, let me, let's see. Hang on, am I still sharing the screen? No, I'm not. Okay, let me go to, I'm going to pull back up in Moodle, so bear with me just a second. Hang on one second. I don't know what is wrong with my dog. I think he's lost his mind because of the snow. Come on.
You might see my cat.
That's fine. Like I said, I don't know what his problem is lately, but he's just been crazy. Wants my attention constantly. All right, so after you do that, let's look at the last part of this, which is your final exam. And like I said, again, let me do some sharing. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, so your final exam, just a reminder that all of your assignments that you haven't completed or turned in yet are due next Saturday, the 27th. Normally assignments, as you know, are due on Sundays, but because the course ends on Saturday, the 27th, everything needs to be in by that date. Also, don't forget to Moodle shuts down for maintenance every night at 11:30 p.m. Trust me, I'm one of those people who likes to work late at night. And I can't tell you how many times I'm going along doing something in Moodle, and then all of a sudden I can't get in. It shuts down right at 11:30 and will not reopen until 12:01 a.m. the next day. If you don't submit by that time, sometimes you can still go in and submit on that Sunday, but sometimes you can't. I don't know. There's some quirkiness in Moodle when it comes to that kind of stuff. So please try to get your stuff in on time so that I can go ahead, because I'll grade on Sunday. I'll submit grades probably Monday, and then you'll see your grades by Wednesday of the next week officially. So the final exam, you're going to create a PowerPoint, a video, or a paper. We've done this a few times, so you should be pretty used to it. And your PowerPoint should be approximately 10 to 15 slides. Your video, 2 to 3 minutes, I think is sufficient. And then a paper, approximately 3 to 5 pages. So you're going to, this is very similar to the midterm. You're just going to answer these 10 questions, okay? So pretty simple. What have you learned? How are you going to use it, et cetera? Because I really do use this feedback. I revise my courses every time I teach them. Sometimes I completely rewrite them. And I really do want your true, honest feedback. I know you guys had the opportunity to do an evaluation on me as an instructor, which I think just opened. I got a message about that. So please do that. But this is really for me, because like I said, I truly go back and use this. So like I said, PowerPoint, 10 slides. A video that addresses the 10 questions, 2 to 3 minutes in length. And then while I say at least 5 pages, actually 3 to 5. If you can do it in 3, that's fine. And do remember that because this is your own thoughts, you do not have to have a reference page or in-text citations, because this is your own summary of what you've done and learned throughout the course so far. Okay. All right. So questions about the final exam or about any of the other things that are still out there outstanding?
So I have a question. What do you mean by editorial comments? Is that?
It's kind of like if you've ever been in an interview and at the end of the interview, they ask you, you know, what's something that we haven't asked you about that you would like us to know about you or
Okay.
whatever. It's kind of that same thing. So, you know, I've asked you some very specific questions, but if there's other things that you want to share with me about the course or the materials or how it's been taught or anything like that, that's just your own personal thoughts. So like I said, it's kind of like if you write an editorial, y'all are all young, you probably don't know what it's like to write an editorial for a newspaper. We don't do that much anymore. But it's kind of that idea, just your own personal thoughts and opinions that, you know, you feel like you want me to know. Okay.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying the very last assignment does not need references or in-text citations?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, you don't need that. You don't need a cover page. You don't need an abstract or whatever. You can just go through and submit the PowerPoint, a video, or your paper, however
Right.
you choose to do it.
Thank you.
Sure. Hang on. It looks like I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Looks like I've got a message, but I can't actually read it. Oh, okay. Sorry, somebody had, like I said, I got distracted by the chat room there. Oh, Suzanne wants to know, does the video need a script submitted? No, you do not. Because again, this is really just your own personal responses to the questions. Okay. Going once, going twice. All right.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? I'm sorry. I don't know if I missed the SMART goals. Do we need a reference page for that and the other portion of the final where we're putting together a PLC? Do we need a reference page for any of the final, I guess is what I'm asking.
You do not need a reference page for the SMART goals. The only thing that I would ask you is if you'll tell me, because you know there's that section where you're listing your district goals or whatever, just tell me what district it's from. You know, and that can be really simple. It can be, you know, in the, I don't know, the Irving Independent School District, you know, the district goal is blah, 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 that kind of stuff. In the final that we just went over, you do not need references or anything like that. Then in the PLC plan, let's look at that real quick. You do not need, hang on one sec, sorry. Come on, open up, there it goes. Sorry, let me share real quickly so that everybody can see what we're looking at and talking about real quick. Where is it? Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding it on my screen. Yep, that's not it. Sorry, let me stop sharing real quick. Oh, sorry, guys. Okay, there it is. Nope, that's the wrong one. Hang on. Sorry. Okay, so you're looking at hopefully the team workshop. Yeah, I'm sorry, the team worksheet, not workshop. So this is the SMART goal one. Correct. That's the wrong one. Sorry, guys. Okay, let me close out a few things and then maybe this will make more sense. Let's see the PLC plan. Where did it go? Open, open, open. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. Okay, one more time. We're going to share. Okay, there we go. Hopefully it worked this time. Let me enable editing. And sorry, guys, my computer is just, I think I've worn it out today. Why does it keep taking me back there? Okay, are y'all looking at my Moodle screen, the grading summary, or are you looking at the PLC plan?
PLC plan.
PLC plan.
All right, thank you. My side, because it just keeps going all these weird places on my screen. All right, so let me move y'all over here. All right, so in the PLC plan, you're basically putting together the information that we've talked about. So, you know, right here when you talk about your PLC, that should be the same thing that you're including on your SMART goals. If I was doing this, I would certainly repeat it. You're describing your objectives, your demographics, all of those kind of pieces. Like I said, I'm not going to walk through this because we've gone through it before, but because this is so much, either you're just relating specific information about a PLC that you're in or one that you have created. If you're not in a PLC, you do not need a reference page, or obviously there's no place to do in-text citation. Because when you're answering these questions, I'm not expecting paragraphs or essays or anything like that. As we talked about, basically 3 bullet points for each one of them is more than sufficient. And so, like I said, you do not need references or anything like that. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, several of you have already done this. Y'all did a great job on it. I've been really impressed with what I've seen you guys do. Okay. All right. Going once, any more questions, guys? Okay, so before we switch to, let me pull some of these down. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pull up. The first thing that I want to do is I want to walk you through. Now, I apologize. This is, let me see if I can flip it around. Shoot. Okay, you may have to look on the side, but anyway. So I had talked a little bit. Let me share this. Like I said, you're going to have to look at it from the side view, unless I can figure out how to flip it around. So I had talked to you guys about when I was a principal in Dallas and then an assistant superintendent. We did a lot of work around professional learning communities. We had a huge district-wide initiative. And in fact, we gave each one of our teachers 2 planning periods, depending on if you were on block schedule or if you were on a traditional schedule. If you were on a block schedule, we gave you a planning period every single day. And then if you were on a traditional schedule, you got 2 planning periods throughout the day. Now, one of those planning periods, though, was dedicated solely to a professional learning community. So it was a requirement. And the way that we did it was we had all the same teachers off by grade level or by department or content area. And one of the things that people seem to struggle with was, what are the activities that you do in a professional learning community? So for example, we created this poster that was actually put in every school's PLC room. And it includes things like, what should we be talking about? We should be talking about academic targets. We should be talking about common lesson planning. We might be analyzing student work. We might be looking at, sorry guys, this is kind of weird for me too, academic reflection and celebration. But these were the topics. So if you had a hard time kind of figuring out what your PLC should be doing or talking about, you could go to this handy dandy poster. Now it is in Moodle. It's actually in week 7. I think week 7 or week 6. But anyway, it's a little bit easier to read in there than it is from my desktop. Okay. Then let me show you, hang on, the back side of this poster. This goes into even more detail. Let me share my screen again. There we go. Okay, this goes into even more detail on what that should look like. So you can see here that one of the things that we would talk about was what we called academic reflection and celebration. So, let's say assume that we met some goals and all of that, then that would be a task that we would look at. Analyzing data. So you can go through and read these descriptors. So like I said, it's not the best quality artifact. In fact, this was the only way I could figure out to get this thing in here because all I have is the poster at this point. But I would encourage you to think about, if you're struggling when you're doing your assignment, there's some good ideas in here as far as best practices and what that might look like in work. And then secondly, creating something like this is sort of a guidepost for your professional learning community can be really beneficial and helpful. It certainly served to keep us on track in terms of the work. And it very much supported what we wanted our teachers doing to have a successful professional learning community. So like I said, I apologize for quality, but that was the only way I could figure out how to get it into the system. Okay. All right. Now let's talk for a second. Hang on, guys. Sorry, I got to close stuff out again. Let me pull up tonight's presentation and I'll share that with you guys as well. Okay, so we are closing out the work on professional learning communities. So let's talk specifically about what we have learned so far about professional learning communities. So a professional learning community has certain characteristics, and it is actually a group. It can be teachers, it can be administrators, it can be central office people. I've even seen professional learning communities used successfully in business. So it's a team of people who come together for a common purpose. Now, in an educational setting, when we have a professional learning community, the whole idea behind it is to look at achievement, and from those achievement results to develop goals, and that's why we talk about the SMART goal format. And then we are also looking at what are those essential learnings that our students need to have. And we're going to, through that process, once we identify what our students need based on our data and aligned with the state or district curriculum, we're also going to need to know what that looks like from an assessment standpoint. So in a PLC, you should be talking about common formative assessment, as well as aligning the curriculum and instruction to the summative assessment. So, you know, if you think about that triad of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, that really is the foundation for the work that should be done in a professional learning community. The other thing that we do is we want to share strategies and best teaching practices across the team. Not that everybody has to teach any particular skill or concept the same way, but certainly we want there to be sharing and dialogue so that we can have the most effective instruction possible. So this is another just nice little bubble map. If you're not familiar with bubble maps, this is actually from, it's called, oh gosh, Thinking Maps. They have a lot of great resources, and they talk a lot about bubble maps. Bubble maps are nothing more than a graphic organizer to help us to really codify our understanding of particular information. So in this particular instance, you can see here, this is much like that chart that I just shared with you, only you can actually read this one a little better. But it talks about in a PLC, what are those things that we should be doing? So again, you'll see a heavy emphasis on data analysis, that the fact that we should have collaboration and peer support, that we're sharing strategies, we're learning and listening. We're certainly thinking about and planning strategically. And of course, there should be an ongoing dialogue and communication. Okay, so when we think about the keys to a successful professional learning community, you have to make sure that there's a commitment from a time standpoint, and also that we have to understand that really and truly an effective PLC at the teacher level should be committed to student learning. And the only way we can do that is if we truly have a collaborative and accountable culture within that successful PLC. One does not exist without the other. Okay. We also know too that we want to make sure that we are looking at current realities. So we're being brutally honest with ourselves about how every single student in our grade level or subject area is achieving. And we also want to be brutally honest that we have to take really strong actions to ensure that our students are all learning. And so, you know, that can mean sometimes that we have to differentiate instruction and plan for those students who don't get it, as well as plan for those that maybe have already mastered the content long before we teach it. So in terms of the questions that we're asking ourselves in a professional learning community, they're pretty simple. So what do we expect students to learn or know and be able to do? How will we know if they learned it? What do we do if they don't? Okay, so 3 pretty simple questions that can guide us. Okay. The other thing too is that we want to make sure we are thinking about continuous improvement. So it's really about results. You know, for a long time, when you think about how schools function, there's a culture of being nice. So do you guys kind of know what I mean when I talk about a culture of being nice? that we don't always tell the truth. We're not really brutally honest sometimes about how each individual in the school is performing. So you may have 5 teachers who are teaching algebra, and 4 of the 5 teachers are getting great results, but there's that one teacher whose students historically do very poorly. Now we're assuming that they're very much alike in terms of student characteristics, those kind of things. But if we are too nice and we're not brutally honest about the results and the expectations for even our lowest performers, then we're missing a golden opportunity to really affect change for our students. In fact, there's some research out there that says that if a student has a weak or ineffective teacher for 1 year, they will lose up to 2 years of grade level achievement. If they have a second ineffective teacher in their educational careers, they will lose anywhere between 3 and 5 years of achievement. And, you know, goodness help that poor child who has 3 ineffective teachers in their educational career, because they will be so far behind their grade level achievement that they can never recover from it. So guys, we have to, like I said, that's why a professional community is so important. We have to leverage that knowledge and information based on the data to ensure that every student is receiving the best possible instruction. So it's all about continuous improvement and results, not about just good intentions. Okay. So we also, as I said, we've got these basic questions. So, you know, what do we want students to learn? How will we know if they've learned it? What will they do if they have not learned it? And then, of course, don't forget that we need to add in that 4th critical question, which asks, what do we do for those students who already know it? So one of the things that when I first went to Booker T. Washington High School for the Performing and Visual Arts as principal, you know, they were known as a really strong school. Certainly their focus on the arts was you know, nationally recognized. They always produced, you know, these amazing presidential scholars in the arts, and their academics were strong. Okay, they weren't blowing the top off, but they were strong. But as I began to really do a deep dive analysis on their data and information, I found a pretty disturbing trend. And what I was finding was that when students got to the high school and they were already high achieving students, so for example, an intern 9th grader may be scoring, you know, in the 98th percentile, and they're 2 to 3 years ahead of their grade level based on their achievement. Well, by the time, and they also had a lot of students who really struggled. You know, I was kind of surprised at the percentage of students who were reading 3 to 4 years below grade level. Well, they did such an amazing job that by the time this cohort of students would graduate, they had all moved to average. So they did a great job of remediating those low achieving students. But unfortunately, those high achieving students, their achievement levels actually dropped. And so instead of, you know, gaining 1 or more years of achievement growth each year, they actually achieved less than that. So by the time those high achieving students graduated, like I said, they had basically dumbed it down enough that those students were now considered just average. So we cannot forget that we have a lot of students in our classes who have already mastered the content that we're teaching. So we have to make sure that we are doing something different and enriching instruction to ensure that those students do not lose achievement, but they also continue to grow exponentially. So we've talked a lot about the work of Rick Dufour, the father of the professional learning community. So this is just a sample PLC agenda. So when you're completing your PLC plan and you're struggling maybe with the questions about PLC agendas, here's some great information that you can use. Okay, so this is the pre-planning PLC work that a leader might do. So what is our goal and outcome? What are our norms that we have developed? And what do we need to be prepared with when we come to the meeting? Also talks about the SMART goals. So this is a very detailed agenda, which again gives you some really good ideas about how each one of those needs to be done. So for example, they're going to look at their norms. They're going to do some housekeeping sort of things the first 5 minutes. Then they're going to review and look at standards. Then from there, they're going to discuss future PLCs as well as some additional ideas. And this is directly from Do 4. Again, here are those questions and some just best practices too. So we want to make sure that our agendas are given to all team members at least a day in advance. Should always include our goals and outcomes as well as topics for discussion. And we also want to make sure too that we are very time driven. So there's nothing worse, I'm sure you've experienced this, than sitting through a PLC that gets off topic, doesn't get through the agenda items, and there's not attention paid to the particular time. So earlier today, I was on a webinar with the U.S. Department of Education, and they had told us from the outset it was supposed to last 2 hours. And the last 20 minutes was supposed to be a Q&A session. And I became increasingly irritated when the session didn't end, the 2-hour mark hit, and we're still having questions and questions and questions, and the questions were repetitive. They'd already answered a lot of these, et cetera. So in that virtual PLC, it just reminded me how difficult it can be for your members when you don't adhere to the stated time schedule. Okay. So I'm not going to walk through every single one of these. These are pretty simple. So remember our process. There should be pre-planning. There should be team building. There's a reason I had you guys do those personality assessments and quizzes. We should take the time to develop norms. We should also be focusing on specific goals and goal setting, and using the SMART format really helps us to achieve that. We should also focus on those essential 4 questions, and we should always include and pay attention to curriculum, instruction, as well as assessment. So don't forget that when we think about curriculum, instruction, and assessment, those are essential elements to ensure that we are providing our students with the best first instruction we possibly can. Okay. So remember too, that if we think about the concept of a PLC and what that looks like, so we have to make sure that there is that solid foundation consisting of the shared mission, vision, values, and goals that drive our work, that we have to work interdependently to achieve these things, and that our results should always be founded in a commitment to continuous improvement. Okay, so again, just a quick reminder as you're building your PLC plan, what is the mission statement? It should answer the questions, why are we here? Why do we exist? What is the vision? What kind of school or district do we hope to become? So what's that future vision? So our values, obviously, how do we behave? I mean, again, it's sort of that blueprint for behavior as well as those things that we want to commit to. And then obviously you guys know what goals are, okay? So again, we must make sure that we allow our teachers and other PLCs time for collaboration. It should be built into the schedule. Teachers have enough to do. We shouldn't be piling on a PLC meeting that's an hour long at the end of the day if we could avoid it. Super important that we build that in. We also want to make sure too that our PLCs focus on learning, not the administrative tasks that oftentimes PLCs talk about. And then of course, those critical questions to decide if we're on track. We also want to make sure too that we have a progress measure. So again, you guys heard me talk a lot about both formative and summative assessment and how essential that is to making decisions about whether or not we're being effective, we're meeting our goals, and then we're actually advancing our students' learning. Okay, so I've also given you a bunch of resources, guys. Here's a couple of specific websites you can go to, but there's like literally an entire handbook from various places. I got these from different schools with their permission. That again, if you're stuck completing your PLC plan, there's some great ideas in these handbooks, and they're posted for you in the resources section. Okay, and I don't know, I have March 3rd on there. It's a date that we have in the College of Business, so for some reason I decided you guys had until then. But correction, that's wrong. It's February the 27th, not the 3rd of March. All right, so what questions, comments, anything like that you guys have?
I have a question, but it's not about any of the material that you just covered.
Oh, that's fine. Sure.
I was busy working ahead and getting all of my other stuff done that I realized I didn't do the discussion board from this previous week. Am I allowed to do that?
Yes, of course. Yeah, guys, I'm not particularly right now. I mean, you know, my daughter lives about 15 minutes north of me, and like she has no water. One of my best friends has no electricity. We're very blessed that we haven't, knock on wood, bless something, we haven't lost electricity or water here in Bossier. But you also can't get out, we can't get my car out of the garage because we have a 3-foot snowdrift against the garage door. And then it's completely frozen with ice as well. So guys, I'm very forgiving about deadlines. If you missed an assignment, just go back and complete it. And also too, when I do grading, if you don't have a submission in there, I put a 0. That doesn't mean that 0 is like locked in stone. It just reminds me that there was a missing assignment, and then you know, once you enter it or whatever or submit it in Moodle, then it's just a flag to me to go back and grade it. So don't freak out if you have a 0. You can go ahead and submit anything you've missed up through February 27th. Okay. And then a student did not, she sent this to me privately, but I'm having trouble with my Moodle. So I'm just going to answer this out loud. I won't tell you who it's from. Where'd it go? Hang on. Yeah, so we've got people with Wi-Fi problems. Yeah, I've been having trouble with my Wi-Fi too. And what somebody wants to know if I teach other courses in this program. Yeah, I actually teach a bunch. I teach EDL 700, EDL 707, and then EDL 710. And then I teach in the Urban Ed program, I teach, I don't remember the course numbers. That's correct. ED 751 and ED 753. And then I think they're talking about adding a couple more courses to my course load, but I don't know for sure yet. But yeah, if you guys, I appreciate that. Thank you. If you want to take more courses that I teach or whatever, you can always email me and I'll let you know when I'm teaching coming up. I think in AP2, I'm teaching EDL 707. Okay. All right, hang on. I just see another message popped up. Let me scroll down. Oh, thanks. Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments, concerns? Sorry, I'm getting my dog potato chips, so he'll have. That's what you're hearing, the wrestling. I'm not eating, it's my dog. He ate carrots last week. All right, any other questions, guys? Well, since this is our last time together, you know, it makes me sad. It's like I used to feel as a teacher, you know, like the last day of school, and you were like so thankful that it was over, but you're also so just sad that you're going to miss your students. You guys have been probably one of the best classes that I've had. I've been so impressed with the work that you guys have produced, and also your self-sufficiency. There, you know, not that I discourage questions. That's what I'm here to do, is to help and support you, but you guys have been troopers and really figured things out on your own, worked well together, and the products that you have submitted have been truly exceptional. So I know that our schools are in great hands as we continue to live through unprecedented events in our lifetime. You guys are doing such a great job out there. So thank you for letting me be a part of your journey. You guys are awesome. So anything else, guys, before we close our last Zoom meeting for EDL 700? Okay. So just a reminder, all assignments are due a week from Saturday. If you run into problems, the only thing that I ask you to do is text me on the 27th or whenever that you're having trouble submitting or finishing or whatever, so we can do a quick dialogue about how that needs to be handled. It's better if you text me because right now, who knows what's going to happen next week. But just do that so that, like I said, I don't want to inadvertently give you the incorrect grade or something like that. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Stay safe, stay warm, and hopefully I'll get to see you in some future classes. Y'all have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks.